Hi, dear peeps, and welcome back. Today I thought I would try to do a very short video on narcissists in the workplace. Now, I know this has been a question for many of you, and how do you deal with narcissists in the workplace? Which it's something you have to work daily, so it has a huge impact on your physical and mental health. Of course, you might find that you are stressed out just by the very thought of having to go into work every morning, and you deal with the stress throughout your day as well, and you come home and you're so stressed out that you're not a very nice person to be around when you get back from one of these very trying days with a narcissist. So I can understand that puts a lot of pressure onto you, and I do not have a lot of experience with narcissists in the workplace because I left my office job about 16 years ago, and I've been, of course, in with my private practice. But I have I do joint projects with other coaches and therapists. So I don't have a whole lot of experience there, but I do use experiences from my husband. My husband is in a very narcissistic environment at his job, at his place of work. And of course, from speaking to clients, I have, just listened to their stories. And these are some of the traits that come out when dealing with them. So that I would like to share with you some of these, the traits that you need to watch out for, and how you can learn to cope and deal with these people, in a toxic environment. So I think the place to start. Oh my goodness, look at that hair. I'm sorry, I just noticed my hair. It's all over the place. But anyway, so I thought I'd start off with recognizing the narcissist in the workplace. So I've just jotted down a few points again, and I'll take you through that. Number one is that they can be very frustrating and annoying. They just constantly in your face, or they're constantly lurking in the background. And they can force you into a position of feeling inferior because they are always putting themselves on a pedestal, always oozing their superiority. It can give you a feeling of being inferior. And that is just, the common frustration and annoyance that they bring about in a workplace. But of course, at an extreme level, they can pose a very real threat to your career, to your job. And while some people in the workplace may show narcissistic tendencies, this does not mean that they are narcissists. So just quickly give you an example, I spent 3 years in Sweden. I was working as a personal assistant to the ambassador several years back. And of course, because it is such a high-profile job and there's such a lot expected from you, and you always have to be on your game, and you always have to be at the top of everything. The ambassador at the time showed or displayed a lot of narcissistic traits, but that has got to do with the level of pressure and with the level of expectation in one of these top jobs. So while she was showing the tendencies, that did not mean she was a narcissist. Of course, all of us have these tendencies. Every single one of us have narcissistic tendencies, but those are very different than narcissistic traits. There's a very real difference there. So while we can all exhibit these tendencies, does not mean that we are narcissists. So that was just to give you a small example of when the tendencies come out and when you are actually dealing with traits of a narcissist. So the tendencies are due. They tend to show up in very competitive situations, as I just said, working at the embassy. And they are also involved with very high-profile jobs. So those are the tendencies. But when you get down to the pathological narcissist, one whom you are dealing with on a daily basis through your work, you will find that they will have a pattern to the following points that I'm just going to name here for you. So a pathological narcissist in the workplace, number one is that they enjoy hearing the sound of their own voice. So they love to hear themselves speak. And everything is about them. So whenever there is a conversation that is involved with someone else, if the attention is off of them, they will reverse that conversation so that everything is about them. This might be during a meeting. This might be during lunch, when you're all sitting having lunch together. That they will totally dominate the conversation. It's all about them. It's all about what they ate for dinner last night, and it's all about what they're going to do after work, and it's all about the new ideas that they are bringing to the workplace. So you'll find that the focus is always on them. Number two is that they love oozing over their own accomplishments and their degrees, and they love name dropping. So, if you are in a work environment where you have, someone in a very high position who is well known, then you will find that this narcissist will continue to drop their name. So there's a lot of name dropping going on there. And they will probably say how, they worked on this and that project with this very person, with the person, that the names dropped on. But of course, yes, their accomplishments will always be told. It'll get to the point where you'll just be like, just shut the F up. I know about your accomplishments and I know about your degrees. It gets to the point where it just gets you in your stomach. It's something that they have to do, and it just irritates everyone around them. The third point is that they will dominate meetings, as I've just said. And another thing that I noticed when I was working in an office several years back is that this narcissistic person would continuously be looking over my shoulder. So I'd be busy, doing my work at my own desk, at my own workstation, and she would hover. She would just sort of hover behind me and be sort of, looking over my shoulder to see what I was doing, what I was typing, if I was using the correct language, if I was, that sort of thing. And this was a continuous thing. Another thing that happens is, if you share one little piece of personal information, they will, that to them is like, it's like you create an opening for them to ask more. So you will find that once you give out a little bit of information, they will keep coming back for more information on you. Now, we all know that this is the way a narcissist works. When they're doing the gathering of your personal information, it is to lure you in and to use your information against you at some point. So, even in the workplace, just keep your private information private, especially if you have suspicions about this co-worker. If it just doesn't feel right, just keep a low profile. Don't share too much with them. And, as I was saying, this person who just sort of hover around behind me, never next to me or in front of me, it would always be behind me. So I'd have this, these chills running up and down my spine. It was very uncomfortable. So you might be able to relate to that. Another thing is that they will steal your ideas. Steal the ideas and then say that you stole them. See how that works? So they use that reverse psychology on you again, put the blame game on you, shift everything, twist the story. So a lot of stealing of ideas, especially if it involves a very large and important project that you may be working on in the company. Another thing to watch out for. Also, the constant interruption. And I also just mentioned this, during lunch or if there's a meeting, there will be a continuous interruption. If you are in conversation with another co-worker, another colleague, you will find that the narcissist will come and interrupt or try and interject, try to put in their 2 cents, try to steer the conversation back to them. Just any way to break whatever communication there is between you and another co-worker. So once again, this is just very, very annoying, the constant interruption. Point number 6 is that they, of course, won't handle feedback or criticism very well. They don't like it, of course. I mean, that is not only in the workplace, that is also, if you are dealing with a narcissist as a partner, of course, or as a friend, or your child, or wherever the case may be. So they will not be able to handle feedback or criticism. So if you say, we're working on this project together, I think you should do this or that, or I think you should imply this or that, or I think you should implement something else into the project, it's a no-go. They do not like the criticism, but they love taking every single bit of credit for it. So another way to go is, I would almost say try and steer clear of giving or dishing out criticism, but that is just, that is absolute nonsense, really, because in doing so, you would once again be the victim, and I am allergic to the victim mentality myself. So no, I wouldn't advise that, to go along with them and to never give feedback or criticism. I would say, if it is safe to do so, especially if it is around other co-workers, because normally if there's a group, then they feel vulnerable in that group. So then it is easier for you to voice your feedback or your criticism. Point number 7 is the passive aggression. So you will find with these narcissists, and it's not just a woman thing, it's the men, the male narcissists as well. You will find that they tend to gossip about other co-workers in the workplace. So it's the gossip, it's the silly and cruel jokes that they will make about you or about others, and then they'll end the little cruel remark with, just kidding. Yeah, that happens way too often. But it's not a just kidding. It is something that they seriously mean. They are often very two-faced, so they might rain on your parade, and then they'll kick or they'll kiss ass, not kick ass, but they will kiss ass when it concerns the manager. So if the manager walks in, or the director, then they will suck up to them. And but you, they will treat, like a pile of dirt, like nothing. So very two-faced. And of course, they love, even in the work environment, they love playing the victim. Playing the victim by, there are so many different examples I could give. Say that the narcissist is in a dispute with a co-worker, and when a third party is brought in to sort of solve the dispute or the conflict, then suddenly the narcissist will start playing the victim by saying, yes, I was having such a bad day when this conflict started, or I'm having problems at home, or I have a headache, or I have a whatever it is, so they will play the victim. And this is to gain sympathy from the third party or from other co-workers. Also denying responsibility. This they're very good at. They will, once again, using the conflict as an example, they will deny any responsibility. So this is, by saying, oh, well, I was having a bad day, or I was, that's not what I meant when I got into this conflict with the co-worker. It's not what I meant. The co-worker didn't understand me, meaning you, didn't understand me, misinterpreted things. So yeah, they just don't take responsibility. Every ounce of responsibility will be denied on their part. Coming back to the victim mentality and denying responsibility, is that they show their weakness in this to elicit sympathy. So what they actually do is they blow up their own ego by taking you down. So if the two of you are having a conflict, they will moan and groan and turn things around, play the victim to the third party who's trying to solve the conflict. And so that strokes the narcissist's ego, and they have taken you down in the process. So this is how it all works. This is how it all intertwines. Point number 8 is that they are usually mentally intelligent, but have severe underdeveloped emotional intelligence. And yet they pride themselves on pretending to have high emotional intelligence. Now, how do they do this? If they get you going, if they get you to a point where they irritate you so much that you finally turn around and you lash back in anger, in frustration, then they will suddenly sort of back down a bit, and they will accuse you of exhibiting very childish behavior and saying that, you need to keep your emotions in check. Yeah, so this is the pride they take from it. They get you to the point of frustration where you lash out, and then they turn around and say that you are the one who doesn't have your emotions under control. And yet, in truthfulness, they are the ones who are underdeveloped in emotional intelligence. It is just so interesting. Let me use that word before I use profanity. It is so interesting how they just sort of flip this whole thing around on you. And of course, you know better, you and I know better, to say that we are emotionally intelligent we develop our emotional intelligence when dealing with these people, because at some point, someone has got to take the higher road, and usually it is the empath who takes the higher road. So thus you exhibit emotional intelligence, and the narcissist is, yes, very underdeveloped in that, and they may be very mentally intelligent people, but emotionally they have no idea what that is, what emotional intelligence is. But that is a whole new video. Oh goodness. Well, I've given you some of the points that you need to, these are red flags when dealing with co-workers, and of course the red flags are more obvious when you are, say, dealing with a director or your boss, or someone from the management team. Of course, that is very obvious that you are dealing with narcissists. When there is a pattern of destructiveness, really. So that's when you are dealing with a pathological narcissist. But of course, if you are, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you are not able to remove yourself from the job environment, if you're not able to look for another job or get another job, then you have to learn how to deal with the narcissist on an everyday basis. So I have a few pointers here. Usually in the workplace, if you have a submissive person who has low self-esteem and low expectations, you will find that this person is able to just deal with the narcissist, because everything the narcissist says or does, this submissive person will just take on and, not make a big deal out of it. So that can happen. You might also see that around you with co-workers, that they just take all this abuse and take all the nonsense. But of course, if you are not a submissive person, then as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you will go home with a lot of stress and you will be stressed out at work and, not have an overall good feeling. So when this happens, you have to be responsible for being able to release the stress once you have left your work environment. So when you go home, whether it is working out at the gym straight after work, or whether it is doing your meditation or reading a good book, or whatever whatever means you have in order to reduce your stress level. This is very important at the end of your day, to reduce the stress. Don't let it build up and build up over time, because then you head towards a burnout. And that is something that you absolutely need to avoid. Another tip is when you are offering ideas on, for example, on a new project, make sure that you always have witnesses around you in the form of co-workers. So, if this is documented, your new ideas for the new project, that is a good thing. Make sure that you have witnesses around you. Do not discuss ideas for a project one-on-one with a narcissist, because I can tell you that they will steal your ideas and later say that you are the one who stole them. So just be very careful with that, very vigilant as well. You need to develop and set healthy boundaries. So, what I mentioned, this ex-co-worker who was continuously looking over my shoulder, you need to set a boundary there. And just to give you another example, it just popped into my head. Of course, I mentioned that my husband works in a very narcissistic environment, and he has a co-worker who, they're all big guys who work there. And this co-worker used to, if they were walking anywhere, he would have this habit of, as soon as he passed another chap, he would sort of hit him on the balls. I'm just going to say it as it is. So he would give a quick hit on the other guy's private parts. And of course, this is very painful, and he did it to all the guys and thought this was such a huge joke. And, he's the man, and he'll say you're a little sissy if the men would complain about it and say, that's painful. Will you stop doing that? And to him, it would just be a wonderful joke. And he did this a couple of times to my husband, hit him on the nuts. And at some point, my husband turned around and hit him with extra force on his private parts. And that put a stop to all of the behavior. So he's never done it again. So, oh my goodness, that is so comical. But, that is also a way of setting your boundaries. Set the boundary. If you hit me in the nuts, I will hit you in the nuts. And by setting that boundary, you'll find that it just won't happen again. So set healthy boundaries. I hope you can relate to that. That was just a funny story, but I realize that there are some serious stories that you probably have to offer as well. So share with us the way you have set your boundaries with these kinds of crazy making people. Yeah, so just give them a taste of their own medicine. In some cases, I understand that you cannot do that in all cases, but in some cases, yeah, ball hitting, you can do it. You can give them a taste of their own medicine there. Yeah, anyway, moving on. Narcissists are usually drawn to narcissistic companies. So when the company is infested with narcissists, that is what we call a narcissistic company. The environment, a narcissistic environment. So they will therefore fit into a very materialistic environment, and there will be a lack of ethics, a lack of work ethic, and a lot of ego masturbation. Yeah, that is what I have noticed in very toxic companies, in very narcissistic companies. There's a lot of ego masturbation, and there is a lot of lack of ethics, of work ethics. So narcissists they'll feel right at home in these kinds of environments. But once again, if you are able to, then resign, find yourself another job, get yourself another career, whatever you need to do in order to maintain your peace of mind. But if you are not in that position to leave the job, then I would say refrain from kissing ass. Just refrain from doing that. Try and ignore the narcissist when they try to enrage you or try to play on your emotions. You know, set your boundaries, ignore them if possible, and always be vigilant about what you say and how you say it. But I think, you know, that is not always possible to just, because then you are feeding them, you are adding to their fuel when you watch what you say and how you say it, because then you end up walking on eggshells. So I realize in some cases you may be able to do this, you know, just watch what you say and do. But in other cases, if that is not possible, then just try to steer clear of them. You know, don't share personal info. Don't sit with them at lunch. You know, it sounds childish. Don't sit next to them at lunch, but it is to protect your own peace of mind. You know, just to make sure that you have a fulfilling day without too much stress, which is usually due to the narcissist. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't have any more points to add to that. I'd really like to hear from you, those of you who have to deal with this on a daily basis with narcissists in the workplace. Please, you know, share with us how you go about interacting, how you maintain your peace of mind, what you do to reduce your stress when you get home or while working. So I'd love to hear from you and, you know, keep this conversation going, because I realize that very many of you have to deal with this every single day. For now, stay well and stay happy, and looking forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye for now. Take care.